Today, we're diving straight into one of America's most endearing and honestly, most haunting family mysteries. We aren't just looking at a tragedy here, we're really examining the anatomy of a belief. We're going to explore exactly why George and Jenny Sodder firmly believed right up until their dying days that their 5 children were kidnapped in the middle of the night, not killed. Let's map out the exact clues and anomalies that built this absolute conviction.
To understand where they were coming from, we have to start with the stark reality of Christmas Eve 1945. A massive fire completely leveled the Sodder family's 2-story wooden home in rural West Virginia. But it's what investigators found, or actually what they completely failed to find in the ashes the next morning, that changed everything. 5 children vanished, but absolutely 0 bodies were recovered. Literally not a single trace. And that forces us to ask the crux of this entire mystery. Did they die, or were they kidnapped? This sheer absence of physical remains birthed a decades-long conviction in the parents' minds. They simply could not accept the official narrative. So let's reconstruct the exact clues, the bizarre coincidences, and the physical impossibilities that built their unshakable belief that their kids had been taken. Section 1. A Christmas Eve tragedy. George and Jenny were raising 10 children in that house. When the place became engulfed in flames, they managed to escape with several of the kids, but 5 of them remained trapped upstairs. We're talking about Maurice, Martin, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, who ranged in age from just 5 years old up to 14. The sheer panic of that moment is unimaginable, but as we're about to see, the timeline of that panic is highly suspicious. Just look at this chilling sequence of events leading up to the tragedy. First, Jenny is woken up by a super weird phone call from a woman asking for a name she didn't recognize. There's clinking glasses and laughter in the background. Later on, the family suspected this was just a ploy to check if anyone was awake. Second, Jenny realizes the downstairs lights are on and finds the phone line is totally dead. Third, she heads upstairs and smells smoke. And finally, before any help can arrive, the house rapidly collapses into a raging fire. Section 2. Ashes without any remains. So the local fire department didn't even show up until the next morning because the chief couldn't be reached and the Sodder's phone line was dead. When they finally sifted through the ashes, they found absolutely no skeletal remains. The official conclusion? They said the children were cremated completely in the intense heat of a fire caused by faulty wiring. But George Sodder, he wasn't buying it. He actually did his own physical experiment burning animal bones in a controlled fire for a comparable amount of time. The result? Recognizable bone fragments survived. The science simply did not match the official story. Section 3. Sabotage and the kidnapping theory. It turns out George had made himself a bit of a target in the community. As an Italian immigrant, he openly criticized Benito Mussolini and Italian fascism, which, well, it rubbed some people the wrong way back then. According to the family, an angry life insurance salesman allegedly threatened him, saying his house would go up in smoke and his children would be destroyed over his political views. Add a stranger seen lingering near their electrical box weeks before, and a picture of premeditation really starts to form. Now, think about the physical impossibilities the parents ran into that night when trying to rescue the kids. George frantically looked for his ladder, which was always propped against the house, but it was mysteriously missing. So thinking fast, he runs to his coal trucks, planning to pull one up to the house and climb on top. But both trucks, which worked perfectly the day before, suddenly wouldn't start. And that dead phone line we talked about, a repairman later confirmed it wasn't burned, it had been intentionally cut. All of this points heavily to premeditated sabotage, not just a string of bad luck. Section 4. Decades of strange clues. Just hours after the blaze, an incredible tip came in. A hotel operator about 50 miles away reported serving breakfast to the 5 kids the very morning after the fire. She said they showed up in a car with Florida license plates, and she noted they seemed extremely frightened when she tried to approach them. She only realized who they were later when she saw their pictures in the newspaper. And the clues didn't stop there. Over the decades, the family got a steady stream of bizarre communications. They received an anonymous photo in the mail of a young man who looked exactly like what their son Louis would look like as an adult. Attached to it was this cryptic, garbled note they tried for years to decipher. They also got unsettling long-distance phone calls where the voices sounded eerily like their missing children. Plus, there were tons of secondhand sightings in other states. While law enforcement never fully verified these leads, for parents desperate for answers, these were absolute lifelines.
Section 5. The Legacy of the Billboard.
To get the word out, George and Jenny put up a massive, permanent billboard right on the highway near their hometown. It featured photos of all 5 missing children and a detailed description of the case. They offered a staggering confirmed reward of $10,000 for information. To put that into perspective, in the mid-20th century, 10 grand was an immense life-changing fortune. It clearly demonstrates the absolute lengths this family was willing to go to find the truth.
So the crucial takeaway here is that this wasn't just some passing phase of grief. It was a lifelong mission. George personally hunted for the truth, chasing leads across the country until his death in 1969. And Jenny, she maintained that iconic billboard and her fierce belief until she passed away 20 years later in 1989. It was only after she died that the family finally took the billboard down.
Despite hiring numerous private investigators over the decades, pushing to reopen the case and generating massive public interest, the heartbreaking truth is this: none of the 5 Sodder children were ever definitively found, alive or dead. This case remains one of America's most enduring mysteries precisely because of that haunting absence of any definitive answers.
Which brings us right back to where we started. We've seen the impossible lack of remains, the cut phone lines, the missing ladder, the sabotaged trucks, and the decades of bizarre clues. I leave you with this final provocative thought to consider based on everything we've explored today. Did those 5 children tragically perish in the flames of a house fire? Or were they, as their parents believed until their dying breath, taken into the night? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning what you see.